My name is Average Joe, and I'm a proud geek with expertise in movies, superheroes, and animation.
My name is Beef Pork Ribs. I'm a fine repository of esoteric knowledge, which I suppose most people would qualify as geeky. Though I dabble in many fandoms, my main areas of expertise are anime, movies, and Belgian comics, with a strong recent insurgency of D&D.
Our mission is to bring nerd and geek culture to the masses
by sticking it all under the microscope.
Welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast.
Movies, comics, graphic novels, TV, cartoons, animation, nerds are geeks, entertainment culture. Hear it on the Bat Jar, Nerdy Power. Nerds and geeks, come gather around the scene. Come and join us in the Bat Jar. Come and tune into Average Joe and his team. Lots of room here in the Bat Jar. When the newest nerdy news drops, these podcast pals put it under the scope. DC, Marvel, Disney, Star Wars, cinematic multiverses. Bat Jar, Nerdy Power.
Hello there, and welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast, where we put nerd and geek culture under the microscope.
And truly, we are doing that today.
Yeah, so Beeper, thank you for agreeing to go along with my scheme for this week. I saw a news story this week, and I was like, wow, I'd love to talk about this on the podcast. And there's been a lot of things happening lately, and just we haven't really been talking about news stories. So for anyone who is super excited about our episode on sequels and what makes a good sequel, that will have to wait until next week, because we are basically just covering a bunch of news stories today. So Beeper, I got to thank you for willing to go along with this, because I don't know where we're going to end up.
That's all right. I mean, I have seen the agenda you sent, so I've got a general idea of what we're talking about, and you know, it is part of our duty to go through different news stories and give our completely unprofessional opinions.
Oh, I have opinions.
Oh, I'm sure
on most
that's
of these
good.
things.
I have some on those too.
So we're going to talk about 10 different news stories today, and I'm just going to briefly describe all of them. So if you're not interested by any of this, then that means you can just sort of check out for this week. But we're going to be talking a lot about Netflix, because Netflix has made some announcements about some of their series, including the Cowboy Bebop live action series, and I believe something about Lord of the Rings. There's a Lord of the Rings anime movie coming out. Oh yeah, and then there's a He-Man series that's coming out for Netflix that has a trailer. And then for Marvel, there was just announced that there's going to be a Guardians of the Galaxy video game. And they've also announced that they're introducing new racially diverse Captain Americas in the comic books. And then for DC today, we have the announcement of the Super Pets animated movie.
Everybody's very excited about that.
And a new Batman animated series for HBO Max from some of the creators of Batman, the animated series. On the anime side of things, we do want to kind of just, I mean, it won't be much of a news story. A famous manga artist passed away, so we'll have to obviously pay our respects there. And
That's
then
a big story in the industry, though.
Okay, fair enough. And then in gaming, there was some kind of gaming convention or something happening, so Microsoft announced a new thing that seems like it's a big deal. And finally, and we'll actually start with this one, Amazon has purchased a film studio, and it's the sign of the streaming wars taking another turn. So let's start with that. Indeed, Amazon, the big company that does all the shipping and stuff, but also runs the Prime Video streaming service, has purchased Metro Goldwyn Mayer, more famously known as MGM, for a whopping $8.45 billion.
Wow. That's impressive, and also a little, how do I say that without being overly cynical? Terrible that they were able to make enough money to make that purchase this year.
Well, and if you bear in mind, if you want to think of scope, you know, when Disney bought Marvel, it only cost them $4 billion, $4 billion in 2009 dollars, but still,
MGM is a much older and kind of more, I don't know, prestigious, especially like I feel like MGM more so than Marvel has a massive back catalog of movies.
Yeah, according to this article, there are about 4,000 films and 17,000 hours of TV in the MGM library.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I find this disappointing because MGM is like one of the original movie studios that was like making movies in Hollywood. And I think over time it's just sort of kind of piddled out to the point of it being purchased by another company. You know, if you think of like the original movie studios like Warner Brothers and Fox and Universal and Paramount and MGM, you know, fewer and fewer of them are their own entities now.
Yeah, I mean but it also does speak to how the industry has evolved and how also the movie industry just doesn't make as much money as it used to. You like clearly because otherwise they'd be able to keep themselves afloat.
Now, the most famous franchises that are associated with MGM are arguably James Bond and the Rocky series.
Both of which are dying, especially James Bond. But
Well, I mean,
we talked about James Bond being
I don't
in a
think
weird
the
place for a
Rocky
while.
franchise is dying. Creed 3 is coming out. Michael B.
That's
Jordan's
true,
directing it.
actually. Yeah, no, I'd forgotten. Creed is kind of saving Rocky. I mean, I was never a very big Rocky fan personally, which it's a good thing my wife isn't on the podcast this week because she'd be very upset at me saying that.
I guess this means that Amazon Prime Video has more ammunition to.
Be worth the price. I don't
Well,
know. I found that Prime has this like. Will this be included with the regular Prime though? Because I find that that's a problem Prime has. Like Netflix just is cycling all its catalog way too quickly recently. I find, but Prime just because it has like all the extra channels, find that it's been very kind of annoying that way.
yeah, I think that's a problem Disney Plus ran into is that they sort of just put everything on there at once, and then it's like because the catalog was so big, people didn't know what was on there. So, I mean, Netflix's strategy seems to work. It's like that's how you get people paying for longer as they keep kind of discovering new stuff as it's added.
Yeah, I can understand that, but also it seems a little, I don't know, dishonest to be like, this is I the problem I have is that Amazon Prime still shows me things that aren't available,
That's true. Yeah, that it does kind of trick you.
and that just doesn't seem like a very good like I don't know, it seems bordering on dishonest.
Well, that's the thing, and it's a platform where you can actually rent movies as well. That's something that like Netflix and Disney. I mean, Disney does the premium access thing, but you can't like go on to Netflix and then rent a new movie in the same way you can with Amazon Prime and
Or Google.
or Google. So I find it annoying, you find it annoying, but there might be somebody who actually appreciates that because it's like the movie.
I'm
At
sure
least
there
it's
are
like
people who appreciate it, but still, it's
there's nothing more annoying than going on Netflix and searching for something. And it's like, oh, titles related to the thing you're looking for, and it's like that's not helpful. I want to watch this specific thing.
or they find it and then it's like available with this thing that you have to pay, $10 a month, and we're like, wait, we got this streaming service to not have to pay for all the channels, and now we have to.
As it is right now, I don't pay for Amazon Prime. I'm not a Prime subscriber, and I'm not a huge enough fan of James Bond or Rocky to start paying for Amazon Prime. I mean, low key, I have access to someone's Amazon Prime Video for shows like Invincible that are only available on Amazon Prime. But maybe if they start locking down access with password sharing, I'll have no choice but to get one.
Yeah, I right now I'm just, if I'm gonna be honest, what I'm kind of taking away from the whole streaming wars is that I just want to have more DVDs because it's kind of not worth it's getting less and less worth investing into a streaming service.
I'd prefer Blu-rays, but to each their own.
Well, yes. I mean, I meant physical discs.
All right, let's just get the sad news story out of the way. So it was confirmed a few weeks ago now that Kentaro Miura, how do I say that name?
Miura?
Kentaro Miura he is the manga artist responsible for the Berserk series. He passed away suddenly at the age of 54. And his story was still ongoing, so Berserk is left unfinished. And for you, Beef Pork Ribs, being a fan of shows like One Piece and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure that are also drawn by older manga artists who are still publishing it, I was curious how you felt about this news and like the fear perhaps that would come
I
from seeing
mean,
this.
the the thing that really is kind of sad with this is that he wasn't that old, you know, um, because like I almost instinctively said, well, Ichiro Oda isn't that old. The author of One Piece is relatively young, given that One Piece is actually his first series. Um, and I mean, Araki's immortal and he's a vampire, so there's less of a worry there. But I feel like there's also for One Piece, it is a worry. It's a worry like that every fan had. When the major earthquake in Japan was on, and there was no news about some of these authors for like a week, and everybody panicked, especially for One Piece. I remember that quite fondly, quite clearly. But I don't know. It's this interesting thing that yes, I think it's very sad. But now there's just a bunch of people talking about whether or not his work will be taken over. And I don't think it's something that's specific necessarily to manga fans either. I mean, anybody who's any level of fan of Game of Thrones, the books, know kind of what we're going through. I mean, J.R. Martin isn't dead, but there's kind of this thing where a lot of people believe he might die before he finishes the book. And in the case of Berserk, that was a series where people did kind of think, because it had been going on hiatus quite regularly due to the author's health problems already. It was one of those like it's not super surprising, but it's still sad. Like literally, I remember the day I found the news. I told one of my friends, like I told him, so I guess Berserk isn't gonna finish, and he said, "What else is new?" Because he hadn't heard the news yet. So it's kind of mixed feelings. Like there is this definitely this culture for like mangas where one author does it all, and maybe they'll start moving away from that, given that a series that has that kind of magnitude lost its author. But I don't know. It's that weird, but it is always a weird thing when an author dies and leaving something unfinished, because a lot of people want it to finish, but also a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to be the one to finish it, right? So basically, what I'm saying is, I think it had a good run. It's great. I would love to see the end of the story, but I'm not that worried about other series. I mean, JoJo's has all its different parts. If one of the part is unfinished, I don't think it's that big of a shame. And One Piece, like, ultimately, the author knows how the story is going to end and could release that in a way so that people would still get satisfaction of the story finishing. And, I don't think, like, I think all of them have been going on long enough that we have enough to keep us going into, like, not having a resolution sucks, but at least, like, it doesn't take away anything from what his work was and is.
Yeah, and I've never really gotten into Berserk, so I don't have any personal attachment to this, but I do feel for you and fans of the series. And I agree with you. This could be a precedent setter in terms of, choosing to pick up the torch from an author who passes away. So we,
Although in this case, it's also he was renowned for being a top-notch artist as well. So it is kind of a lot to pick up. Like, not to diss either. Well, I mean, yeah, never mind. The other authors have quite a strong style that is hard to mimic as well. But like, there are some series where it's a little bit less of an issue to like copy the style, and a lot of people could do it. But Berserk definitely has a very very detailed and beautiful style that would be hard to replicate.
So Kentaro Miura, we pray for your soul and our condolences to your family. I think we've at least spoken off air about the live action Cowboy Bebop series that is being made for Netflix. Have you heard about this, Beef Fork Ribs? Is this like a new thing for you?
No, we talked about it. I, I think my opinion has always been, but Firefly exists.
Yes. Well, the news that came out this past week is that Yoko Kanno, who was the composer for the original Cowboy Bebop series in the 90s, will be returning for this live action show to do the music once again.
That is both exciting and also a little strange. I don't know. I feel like I don't know what direction this live action adaptation is going to take, so it does make it a little strange. Like, I assumed they would probably use the soundtrack from the original series because it's great, it's iconic, it's very, very good, and it was written custom for it. So then when I think about it, well, yeah, it was written custom for it, and having the composer come back again and presumably making a new custom um, soundtrack like for each episode specific to the storylines, that's exciting news.
Yeah, I was excited when I heard this because while I haven't finished the anime of Cowboy Bebop, the music is definitely a huge part of what makes the show so iconic. And this made me think of some of the live action Disney movies that have come out, which I know you're not a huge fan of, but like the live action Aladdin and the live action Lion King both had the original composer from the animated film come back and do the music again. And it's not like they just redid the exact same music because obviously the films are different, but it gave them a chance decades later to kind of revisit a film they'd worked on before. And it created that sense of familiarity that even though the actors and the characters looked different than what we imagined from the animated film, I appreciated the kind of continuity of the composer, like the music being not necessarily the exact same. It's not like they just copy and pasted the old soundtrack, but I don't know, it made me feel like I was watching the same thing somehow.
Yeah, no, I get that totally, and I think it will go a long way into making it a more enjoyable watch. And if not, they'll sell the soundtrack and it'll still make money.
So this has been confirmed to being released this fall on Netflix. So I'm looking forward to it. The show was delayed because John Cho he like suffered some kind of like leg injury when they were filming it, and it was delayed several months. So I'm all for this. I know that the live action Death Note movie they made for Netflix was not received well, but I'm more confident about this one.
I mean, Cowboy Bebop just innately lends itself better to a movie. There already is, well, I guess there are 3 Death Note movies in Japan, but they mostly just like covered parts of the anime, whereas the Cowboy Bebop movie is a spin-off of the series, and actually kind of worked that way instead of just being episodes of the show in movie form. And if that's what they're doing, then that works a lot better.
Let's keep the sci-fi theme going. This past weekend, it was announced that Square Enix is making a Guardians of the Galaxy video game, and it'll be released in October 2021. I believe this is the same company that created that Avengers game that came out last year, which I haven't played because I don't really play video games, but I have not heard good things about that. So admittedly, I'm kind of concerned for gamers because logic would suggest if the first game this company made for the Marvel stuff wasn't received super well, the stack is against them.
I suppose so, but I mean, I'd be curious to know why it didn't sell well though, because I mean, Square Enix, prime provider of JRPGs for the world. It is a company that has quite a few feathers in its cap. It's not like they're a new kind of new kid on the block trying to make a game and it didn't work out. It is definitely a company that has well established titles and series, so I think it might have to do more with the way the game was presented rather than the quality of it. I don't know. I haven't actually played the Avengers game either, but who knows? I'm not overly excited by it, and I don't think a Guardians of the Galaxy video game is really necessary or something that people were asking for, but it's there, and maybe it'll be good, maybe it'll just be another forgettable game, but I don't know. The trailer looked nice, but then again, Square Enix games look nice if nothing else.
It's described as a single-player, third-person action adventure that puts you playing as Star-Lord. Like the whole game, you're playing as Star-Lord, which to me, this seems like, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. It's like this is a franchise that's rooted around a team. At the very least, you should have the option to switch out and play as different characters.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, but that's kind of the concept, and that might be what people don't like is the concept of it. But I don't know. I wouldn't knock it till I try it, and I'm never gonna try it, so I'm probably not gonna knock it.
But it'll be available on PC, and you're a PC gamer. You're not. You like the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Like I feel like you're the target audience. They're like, yeah, we want people who enjoy this, team of heroes from the movies to actually like go and play this game.
Yes, but I'm not the target audience for that video game. I don't really play single player RPGs much at all. So, there's a kind of two parts to that.
Fair enough. Well, I do not play video games, so I will not get this. But who knows? There might be someone out there who's like, yeah, I always wanted to be Star-Lord and just have the other Guardians kind of follow me around. Kind of makes me think like Pikmin.
Oh, that would actually be great though if it was like a Pikmin game.
The news story that I don't know how I feel about, they've announced that they're making a new Batman animated series for HBO Max and Cartoon Network. And it's being produced by J.J. Abrams, who is developing all kinds of content for HBO Max. Matt Reeves, who is directing the new movie The Batman. And Bruce Timm. Now, Beeper, are you familiar with who Bruce Timm is?
Yeah, he's the creator of Batman the Animated Series.
He's technically the co-creator because Eric Radomski did it with him. They've released like one promotional image of this show. It's going to be called Batman: Caped Crusader. And it's based on the image alone. It does look very promising. It's like Bruce Timm's clearly drawn this, and it feels like Batman the Animated Series, but based on how Batman's drawn, it looks more like early Batman comics, like late 1930s, early 1940s.
Yeah, so, it has an interesting look to it, but not one that I don't know. I'm less concerned about the art style and a little bit more concerned about like what it ends up being. I don't if that makes sense.
Well, I genuinely question I love Batman, but I genuinely question making another Batman show when there's so many DC characters that have not been given that opportunity to have a TV show yet. Like there have been so many animated Batman shows, and
yeah, but I think that it's unfortunately the fate of DC is to try to live off of the two very successful franchises and kind of go around it, if that makes sense. Like, take Batman and Superman and do as many things with them and then add some of their other some of the other franchises in around that core. But also, like, people are still clearly there's still a demand for this. There's still a demand for Batman. There's still, a demand for DC animated shows too, which is like it's the last thing they still got that is really that they, that honestly really works. And I feel like that's something that they need to kind of like really take advantage of. And who knows, it might create another classic. It might just create something good.
Well, I don't think it says it's meant to be in the spirit of Batman the Animated Series, but I don't think
it's also a reinventing, right? Or a retelling.
Yeah, like it's not meant to be set in that universe. But I'm like, if you have the guy, like, how many different ways can one person? I feel like Bruce Timm, like the animated series from the '90s, was his version of Batman. So, like, how many different ways can the same person approach the character? Like, is it just going to feel like the animated series? But obviously, it's not.
I don't know, because of the other people who are kind of involved. I feel like it just might be that it will be, yeah, I don't know. It will be a different vision. The way I see it is it's going to be a different vision, but with the same emphasis on, good episodal storytelling and good character development. But those character might be a little different. And if that's what it is, I think that would hit a sweet spot that would make sense.
Yeah, in their like announcement to the series, they said that it will be thrilling, cinematic, and evocative of Batman's noir roots, while diving deeper into the psychology of these iconic characters. And I'm like, that's basically like you just described Batman the animated series. Like, I
Yeah, that is true that the description they made of it does make it hard to like kind of look at it. Um, though I don't know, it we haven't had an iteration of Batman that puts the emphasis on his detective work in a while. So even if it's similar, I'd still think it would be nice to have that again.
I'm also like mentally torn. I'm like, if this series is drawn in this way and it's not Kevin Conroy as Batman, it's gonna be a hard mental thing for me to get over. Being like, okay, it looks like this, but then I'm like, would I even want Kevin Conroy voicing Batman? Because if it's like if this is meant to be like a new take in a different universe, hearing his voice will just make me think it's like meant to be the other franchise.
Yeah, actually, I hadn't thought of that. It's going to be also, well, for all the characters, really, I think, including probably, well, most notably, the Joker.
Yeah, and a lot of the actors who were originally in Batman the Animated Series have actually passed away in the time since. Even if they wanted to bring everyone back, they couldn't. And I'm also wondering, like, because Matt Reeves is involved and he's the one directing the new Batman movie, does that mean like we're going to see a lot of, I don't know, like the influence of that movie on this show?
Yeah, who knows? Maybe.
Which might not be a bad thing because, the Tim Burton movie definitely left an influence on Batman the Animated Series, and it's not like it was a bad thing. But
No, I mean, it was, but also, like, Batman the Animated Series had a big influence on Batman as well. So that, that's also something to consider.
probably the worst the worst part of this story is that it is being made for HBO Max and Cartoon Network in the United States. So we have no clue about how it's going to be made available to Canadians. If it's going to
Yeah,
be like
I saw that, and that was very unfortunate.
it could mean that it gets picked up by like one of the, cable channels here, and means you basically got to pay for cable to watch it. And honestly, if the show is as like good as it seems to be, I might have to start paying for cable just because I don't like pirating, these kind of things. And there's no obvious home for if it turns into a Crave thing, I'm gonna be mad because I don't have to start paying for Crave again.
But at least we have the option. I don't know. Again, get it on DVD when it comes out on DVD. If it's that good, I don't know. That's still my solution to most things. I know it doesn't necessarily work, but I want it to. So I'll stick with that plan for now. And if that becomes impossible, then I'll figure something else.
Well, you alluded to Mark Hamill, so I think that's a good transition to our next story. There is a new He-Man and the Masters of the Universe series coming out for Netflix, and it's starting next month in July. I've been made aware of this series for a while now because I can remember almost a year ago when they had Comic-Con International at home, Kevin Smith kind of hosted his own like evening with Kevin Smith panel, and there was a portion of it where he talked about this new He-Man series because he was like asked by Netflix and Mattel to like basically create it. And say what you will about Kevin Smith's movies that he's made, like they're kind of hit or miss for me, but he is definitely a huge fan and a big like nerdy geek. Like he'd be great to like, have on here at some point if we ever get that big. So I was kind of excited with the idea of someone like him kind of leading the charge on a He-Man series. And the trailer announcing the series just dropped like a few days ago. And I'm curious, Beeper, have you watched it yet?
I did actually. I watched it today because you had posted it, and yeah, it's strange because it has kind of like that look that Netflix and the studios that do animation for Netflix kind of have, which I'm not 100% sold on right now, I will admit. But, like, I don't know.
Because it looks like anime, but it's not anime. Is that what you mean?
Somewhat. Well, yeah, but also because they kind of do this thing, like, because they're also doing this thing that a lot of animes have started doing, which I don't like about, anime, which is, like, adding a weird amount of, like, CGI that is somewhat unnecessary.
Really? I didn't even notice any CGI in the trailer.
Like, all the vehicles were CGI'd.
Huh. I guess I wasn't paying attention to them. I thought it was a great trailer. I was like, yeah, like give me
Yeah,
this now.
I'm not dissing this trailer. I think the trailer looks great. The style of animation I'm a little about.
So it's not necessarily how the characters look, it's the fact that there's this blend of unnecessary CG with traditional animation.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, it's called Masters of the Universe Revelation, and the first part will air starting July 23rd. They got Mark Hamill to play Skeletor. I'm like, that's gonna be great.
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead.
oh no, I mean, yeah. Skeletor is always one of the best parts of any He-Man franchise, right? So
Yeah, I mean,
you should be excited about it.
I've never been like super invested in the He-Man franchise. I remember watching like reruns of the original one, and then when the 2002 one came out, I remember watching it, and like when I was a kid. But admittedly, just the way it's presented here, like the way the power system works and the way the fights work, I'm like, I'm sold. Like I will watch this, and I will happily talk about it ad nauseum if it's good.
Yeah, no, uh, see, this is the thing about this, as well as the Cowboy Bebop and a few other things, is that, like, I've been wanting to actually cancel my subscription um uh to uh to Netflix, just because there weren't a lot of things that I wanted to watch, and then suddenly all these things sound kind of exciting. I'm like, oh man, now I might have to do it again.
Do it. Do it. And apparently, this is meant to be like a sequel to the original series. It's meant to kind of pick up where that one left off. So, but it's going to obviously, like most TV shows, have like a starting point so that you can get introduced to the world and the characters. And I'm digging it. I'm like, let's go, Netflix. You are, yeah. You're making me spend money. You jerks.
They've done it again.
Speaking of people who will not get me to spend money, Microsoft. I have no disliking of Microsoft specifically. It's more so it's because I'm not a gamer. I've already kind of talked about this here, but they've announced
Ever since Ensemble Studio got reabsorbed into the machine, yeah.
I have
If you
no
don't know
idea what
what
you
that
mean.
means, it's the studios that made the Age of Empires series.
So Microsoft's Xbox has unveiled its plans to release its own streaming stick as well as a smart TV app for cloud gaming.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's an odd, like, I find it odd just because, like, there have been other kind of like services trying to do that, though none associated with a major company. But I feel like that's mostly because the major gaming companies kind of just have their consoles be compatible with that kind of a platform, if that makes sense. Whereas they've decided to make their own hardware for it, which I don't know. I'm a little skeptical about, as I am mostly with Nintendo. Microsoft trying to do new things. Their innovation level, especially in the video game industry, has been lackluster. I mean, since the beginning, but maybe it'll work. This is the thing that's going to change everything. But it also seems like they're just hopping onto a market that's already pretty highly saturated, for streaming sticks, and, like, seems to be completely new and have little to do with what they've been making till now. But it's hard to tell. We'll see where it goes.
I'm trying to understand, is this their attempt to try and get more people who don't already have an Xbox playing Xbox games by like having the thinking you can plug into your TV instead of having a whole console?
I don't think so. I think that they're trying to kind of get a niche into the multi-platform gaming market, as well as have a segue into possibly joining the stream wars. That's the feeling I got from that announcement. Also, probably launch a new operating system that's even more um, cross compatible, because that's something that they've been kind of sorely lacking, and something that might possibly work into their phones and linking phone, computer, and TV all together. In which case, they would be the first people to do that entirely.
Yeah, I'm reading the article more now, and it says, yeah, like the streaming stick is meant to be a workaround for people who don't have necessarily a smart TV
Yeah,
with the app. So I'm like, okay, that would be like if like my TV isn't a smart TV, so I would need the stick. But it says here the reach of Xbox cloud gaming shall extend to mobile browsers as well, allowing gamers to play Xbox on their smartphones and tablets.
yeah. So they're trying to have a specific um, horse in the cross platform gaming, instead of just allowing games to be played on their platform as well as others. Which probably means that they're gonna start making a lot more, smartphone games themselves, which is a market that most of the major gaming companies haven't gotten into.
Is this their like
Most
response
but
to the Switch then? To like,
maybe, well, in a certain sense, I think it is, but not. But I think it's more of it seems like they're weirdly trying to carve out a place in either streaming or um, like mobile games, which is weird because that is an industry that is dominated by indie producers. So unless they also start like maybe they'll start putting out games like with specific teams to kind of get into that market, in which case then maybe it'll be something that will work out for them. But I don't know, it seems like a bit of a gamble, mixed with going into a territory that has been completely dominated by independent producers. And for a big company like Microsoft to do that, it seems a little bit weird, unless they've got like other ideas, of how they're going to make it work properly, or how they're going to make it work better. Because I don't know, I don't really see it being a big avenue. So I think they're probably banking on the idea that this would be like an all for one kind of product that would work for games, TVs, and internet browsing.
well, I'm seeing a picture of like an Xbox controller essentially connected to a smartphone, and the person's playing Halo on the smartphone. So I'm trying to imagine this as like, are people like would this really be what people do? Like if they're taking the bus, they let's go, oh, let's get out my what's it called, X Cloud, get out my controller and have it plugged into my phone. I guess if they can replicate like the console experience in a mobile format like that, because surely you wouldn't like play this in your home if you have
I
access to a
mean,
TV.
oh man, it feels like back in the day, there you could get these like removable battery packs for your Game Boy Color that had handles like a controller. It feels like that, except that was something that was out in the late 90s. So I think it feels definitely more like a step backwards if you need your controller to plug into it.
I mean, I can also see like the streamlining here. It's like instead of trying to make mobile game versions of all your whatever games, you can just have the one that somehow is cross compatible with all these different things. But I don't know. I guess
There are already cross compatible games that specifically are made to work on all these platforms. And so unless you're buying into this kind of market, which again dominated by independent and indie game producers, you're not gonna make money.
well, I don't know how I feel about that news story, but there is one thing that's been announced recently that I know I have positive feelings about, and I have no idea what this means for you, but it's been announced for a while now that DC and Warner Brothers have been planning to make an animated film about the League of Super Pets. Oh boy, that's a good start. And they announced the cast this week. Our boy Dwayne The Rock Johnson is going to be playing Crypto the Super Dog, and Kevin Hart is going to be Ace the Bat Hound.
I mean, anytime you put Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart together, at least you know those two are going to work well together. But I'm just, I feel bad because I just said that we need more DC animated things, but that's not what I had in mind.
I mean, the whole concept of the super pets, I think, is a great idea to like make a movie like more kind of focused on kids. It's just really fun to think about Superman having a dog or Batman having a dog, or there's like a cow and I think there's a kangaroo. Like there's all these different kind of super animals
Are
themed
the
around.
villains also animals?
Yes, so like
The kangaroo would definitely be like Captain Boomerang instead. That would be
yeah. I mean,
great.
I haven't really looked into this too much. There was a Crypto the Super Dog animated series like in the 2000s that I saw a bit of, but I know like Joker's hyenas and like the Penguin's penguin and Catwoman's cat were all like characters that they came up against. But what's your reaction to this? Are you familiar with the super pets? Do you think this is a good idea?
I was aware of Crypto and of
Ace?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, I'm aware of the concept, and yeah, if it's a kid's movie, it's probably going to be okay. It seems a little strange, but I'm ready to be surprised positively. Like, I don't think I did sigh because it's such a ridiculous idea, but it could, if they pull it off, it could be great.
To my chagrin, like most, like they've announced the major voice cast and they're all celebrities, and so this is another animated movie where they're just getting celebrities to basically like do their own voices. But they have Kate McKinnon, John Krasinski, Keanu Reeves, and 3 others that I've never heard of before. And they haven't announced who they're playing. They've only made a point of telling us that Crypto is being played by The Rock and that Ace is being played by Kevin Hart.
Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting, like, I don't know, it is a kind of unfortunate thing that, have we made an episode of The Bachelor about celebrity voice actors?
No, but it's been brought up at least once or twice.
Okay, yeah. I mean, so we don't have to go into that whole, big can of worms, but sometimes it works, and this could be one of those situations. Though I feel like it works best when you have people who have very distinctive voices, and like Keanu Reeves, sure. Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Hart, yeah. John Krasinski, a lot less. And so I don't know. We'll have to see what it gives us, but it might also, yeah. So I'm not super excited about it, but it has potential. But again, I don't know. I think like it. I'm always wary of movies that look like Illumination Studio style animation that have animals as their main characters.
Yeah, I'm super excited. This is coming out in 2022. We don't have an exact release date yet, but I'm sure it'll be great. And if it isn't, I will cry. Let's hop the fence back over to Marvel. So there's this thing they're doing in Marvel Comics right now. There's a new series called The United States of Captain America. And I guess the premise behind this new series is they're introducing different people as, I don't know, regional or local Captain Americas. And the goal with, it seems, with these different Captain Americas is getting people who are from different racial and ethnic backgrounds in the role of Captain America. And we had a conversation not too long ago about the idea of legacy characters and how having too many of the same character, like using the same code name running around, can dilute the brand. So I don't know how to feel about this idea.
I mean, yeah, we also just recently had like talked about Captain and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Sorry, Captain America and the Winter Soldier. The last episode of Snowy Owl, and how that was already kind of like that one made more sense because A, there was a precedent for it, but also it was a continuation. I don't know this comic series. I don't know how much or how well it continues on from um what's happening. I don't know. Am I don't know if I'm making sense, but like I feel like if that comic book has kind of set it up properly and that comic arc works, then I don't really see a problem beyond, you're going to be a niche comic that doesn't really make total continuity, and it's something that the comic book fans are going to be arguing over, but that probably won't make it really big into mainstream, especially with the state of the MCU as it is. That's what people are going to know. So, and if later on they decide to have uh what was it, a Filipina American college girl be Captain America?
That's right. So
Yeah.
this
Like,
isn't this. It's not like she's replacing Steve Rogers. The idea is that she, among other people, are going to be additional Captain Americas.
oh, okay, never mind. That just makes me think of the 1960s Casino Royale movie where they decide to make every actor in the movie James Bond. It was hilarious, but not taken very seriously.
I mean, they did something like this in Batman like 10 years ago. It was called Batman Incorporated. And the gimmick was that Bruce Wayne announced to the world that he had been funding Batman for years and that he was basically going to help establish a Batman type in every like country of the world. So you met all these different characters who they weren't all Batman, but they were kind of like meant to be a Batman.
Yeah, but again, in universe that makes sense, right? Like I could see that happening. I could see Batman, like Bruce Wayne, deciding to do that. It kind of fits the continuity. Whereas, like, and that's what I'm trying to get at is if it fits the continuity, if it works within the universe, then go for it. But you need to have. It's just there's always a danger of it just being pandering, and but it also is kind of weird to do it for Captain America unless it is specifically the US government doing it to like have different super soldiers come up.
Yeah, I like this idea of this character. I wish she had a different name just so that she wouldn't have to be kind of labeled as, oh, it's just a Captain America knockoff. Like, be one thing if she was just becoming Captain America, but she's just going to be like a spin-off Captain America. And to me, that kind of, I don't know, it devalues her and it devalues these other Captain. Like, to say, oh, I'm Captain America, it's like, well, it's like everyone's Captain America at a certain point.
Yeah, and I mean, have you ever seen that old James Bond movie?
I have not, no.
The Casino. Oh, I recommend just look at the trailer on YouTube. It's yeah, I think it was in 1963. I think it was not it's not part of the James Bond canon as such, but it had Woody Allen, David Niven, Peter Sellers, all playing 007, among other people. So it wasn't serious and it was quite funny, but it does kind of feel like that unless you have a good explanation as to why canonically in universe these people would all be Captain America, then don't make them Captain America. But that goes back to our legacy character discussion, which you guys should go check out.
That's right. Series co-writer Alyssa Wong was quoted as saying, "When I was approached about creating a new local Captain America for this series, I immediately knew I wanted to write a Filipino American girl. There just aren't that many of us in comics. I grew up without a Filipino American community for the most part, so every time I see a Filipino character, I get excited. And getting to create one, a Captain America even, feels incredibly special."
Yeah, I mean, and that would be exciting, but I mean, I'm always of the opinion that newer things that you try are better, but they also tend to not do as well financially or get the same recognition. So maybe this is something that is needed.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not reading Captain America comics right now, but I will admit this idea has got me at least interested in finding out more about what's going on with the United States of Captain America.
For sure.
I seriously hope they don't have like one for every state though, because then like that's a bit much to have 50 different characters all saying they're Captain America.
And 3 of them are sleeper Hydra agents. Which ones?
And finally, I think the news story that made me go, what? This is happening? The one that we'll kind of finish with today. The announcement of an anime film set in the world of Lord of the Rings that will be released in theaters, and it's being directed by Kenji Kamiyama. Hope I'm saying that correctly.
Yep.
Who directed Ghost in the Shell standalone complex.
I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of excited about this. I'm trying to like I mean obviously I love Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. It's a great show. It has very good action, solid animation, but it's not the same studio, is it?
No, it doesn't really mention like what anime studio is creating it.
I see. No, it says it's Sola Entertainment.
Oh,
In the article you sent me. So, yeah, real quick. Oh, I see.
this film is titled The Lord of the Rings: The War of Rohirrim. Rohirrim? Is
The
that a term from
Rohirrim.
like? Is that like from the Silmarillion or something?
The the Rohirrim is the name of the writers of Rohan. That's what they're called. They're called the Rohirrim.
Oh boy, the War of the Rohirrim doesn't mean they're like fighting each other.
No, it's I mean presumably I mean, I read part of the article. It was supposed to be based on characters from the book's appendices, which means that it would be kind of the backstory. So, yes, like the Similarian, but probably more recent history than Similarian. And the mighty king of Rohan, Helm Hammerhand. Yeah, as in the horn of Helm Hammerhand, which is the helm in Helm's Deep. The horns are in Helm's Deep. It's no. I mean, look, it looks like it'll be interesting. I think they very intentionally picked something that's in kind of the backstory of history of Lord of the Rings, as opposed to like the actual direct Lord of the Rings, because that would seem like very ambitious. But I don't know. I feel like it could be very interesting. I looked up the studio. They are the ones who are apparently currently doing the God of High School anime, which is, you know, a pretty good animation. The director is great. I think it'll be very interesting to see, but also kind of weird. Like, you're right, having an Lord of the Rings anime is weird, but I don't think it's I don't know. I don't think it's a bad idea. And I think that it could really be something interesting and, you know, a good lore dive with animation. And like, I don't know, animation is very good for wars and for kind of epic, you know, scenarios. I find that in many cases it works a lot better than cinema. I mean, cinema looks inherently more impressive when you have something massive like that happening, but it can't always catch quite the scope of what you're trying to do. And if you're trying to have a more heroic story kind of based on the lore of legends, I feel like you're having some kind of, you know, having animation as the medium is a good idea. And now as for how well the story is going to represent Tolkien's world, given, you know, that it's an anime, I have no idea. But I don't know. Everybody who's involved in this project seem to be people who are competent, so I'm expecting at the very least a good movie.
Yeah, apparently Philippa Bowens, who was the screenwriter for Return of the King, will be a consultant. And it's set, 250 years before the original movies during what's called the Third Age. But I'm like, what kind of precedent is this? Like, is this going to be the beginning of Western Hollywood studios reaching out to anime studios and saying, we'd love for you to make an animated, like an anime film of an existing IP that we have for it to be released over here.
I mean, it's not inherently like there are precedents for Asian animation studios being employed. I mean, I think Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of the first ones. Even though it is an American company and project, it was still animated in Korea, and it's. I mean, look, the best the for a while. Demon Slayer was the best-selling movie of the year, right? Like, yeah, it might be setting a precedent for that, and I don't know. I feel like that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's a lot of talent and a lot of very good animation and animators that work in Japan that don't necessarily usually get a chance to shine in North America or in the public consciousness as much over here. And I think it's kind of a shame because you do miss out a lot of like gems of movies that are, very well made, but because they weren't in the language you speak, you don't necessarily see them, or because they were released somewhere else. And that's part of, it's part of globalization, the world economy working together. It means that, yeah, you can outsource animation to a studio in another country. And I don't know. I,
I mean, there's
I,
a long history of American shows having their animation done somewhere else. Like even Family Guy has their animation done in South Korea. It's more so this is like they're saying make it look like an anime, and then we're selling it over here. So I'm like, who is the target audience again? Are they trying to get people who went and saw the Lord of the Rings movies to go and watch, like big Tolkien
oh
fans that
no,
go watch an anime, or are they trying to get anime fans interested in like is this
they
like
are
as you
definitely trying to get anime fans interested in a franchise that they own. That's I think that is 100% what is happening.
because there probably is a lot of crossover between Lord of the Rings fans and anime fans like yourself.
Yes, but um, there's this odd thing where Lord of the Rings fans are probably a little bit in decline, whereas anime fans are rapidly going up in North America, especially with things again like anime being more available. And like I don't know, when I was in high school, there were like 3 people who had watched Dragon Ball Z and really enjoyed it in my class, right? Like that was the extent of being an anime fan. Now I teach a grade 7 class, and everybody, like all my students, at least know a few titles of anime. They might not watch it, but they know what it is. They are aware of it. Like it's inescapable. So, you know, it makes sense for a studio to try to ride that popularity to kind of bring in new audiences into their franchises.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Like we've talked about how Tolkien's work really kind of helped create the fantasy genre as it is today, and there's just a boatload of fantasy anime out there. So I can totally see like the Lord of the Rings imagined as an anime. It seems like a very natural fit.
But it does seem odd. You're right that it does seem odd that you're getting an American studio getting their stuff done in Japan to look Japanese to sell in North America, but that's it might actually make people realize that, you could, I don't know. I think for anime fans, it's a step towards, oh yeah, it's not just a bunch of kids yelling. It's a style of animation that has kind of a different philosophy and a different way of working through things. It's much more feeling and emotion based than um, technique based. And I think that's something that fantasy can benefit from, as you said, and it might be able to show that, yeah, no, there's more to it than just the Japanese cartoon that your kids watch.
And this isn't the first instance of like an anime film being based on a Western thing. Like there's been at least 2 different Batman movies that have been produced by anime studios. There was a Matrix anime movie that was made. There's a Blade Runner one that's coming out soon. They just announced they're going to make an anime film set in the universe of the Netflix film Bright. So this isn't like an unheard of thing, but I think for a franchise as big as Lord of the Rings and for it to be like meant to be released theatrically as opposed to like direct to video, I feel like that it's on like a scale we haven't seen before.
Yeah, but again, I think that also has a lot to do with the recent success of the Demon Slayer movie as a theatrical release.
So who's to say this movie might end up being terrible and might end up being the best movie ever? I mean, again, I'm not a Lord of the Rings fan, but admittedly, I'm more on the anime side where I'm like, oh, it's anime. Okay, I guess I'll watch it.
Yeah. Can I just also real quickly? I know we're running out of time, but like, hopefully, maybe an anime for Bright might be a good idea just to like justify its existence and actually give it a backstory because man, is that movie in need of real backstory and substance because it's horrible.
So that is all the major news stories that I could find for us to discuss this week. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed our discussion, and let us know how you feel because we have no mail to read, and we'd love to hear from you.
If you want to reach the show, you can send us an email at
batjarpodcast@gmail.com.
or you can tweet us at
The Bat Cookie Jar.
You can find the Bat Jar Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube, because we got a channel. Share our posts on Facebook, write reviews, give our shows a rating. This will help all people join us inside the Bat Jar, and we appreciate it dearly.
And there's no need to go inside the Bat Jar because next week's topic is set. We will not delay it any farther. Next week we'll talk about what makes a good sequel. I've already got some thoughts written down in my head that has to be translated to paper.
Yeah. Okay. And then a week later, we'll start the new Bat Jar podcast.
No. Oh, no. So come back to the Bat Jar Podcast next week when we talk about what makes a good sequel. And until that time, I'm Average Joe.
I'm Beef Pork Ribs.
Catch you on the flip side.
Our sons will run the next show.